Hey, let's do a review of the first 4 lessons of this chapter so that we can remember and review and remind ourselves what is the most important things that we need to remember. And that would be the formulas. You need to memorize those formulas. Your life will be easier if you can just, instead of having to go to the recipe cupboard and look for and pull up the recipe card so then you can make whatever you're going to make. It's easier if you just have those recipes memorized. And that's what formulas are for math. There are certain things that you do every single time to get a certain outcome. And in this case, our outcome is area of certain polygons. So if we want to find the area of a parallelogram, instead of having to go and Google and research what is the area of a parallelogram, if we just have that memorized in our head, life will be so much easier. So let's go through those 3 formulas, those 3 recipes that we have learned so far. The first one we learned and talked about is the area of a parallelogram. And technically, we could also say that this is the formula for the area of a square and the area of a rectangle. So all of these shapes can be found, the area can be found by doing area equals base times height. So we only need 2 ingredients for the area of a parallelogram, and that's just the base and the height. But often we'll get parallelograms where we have more than just the base and the height, and we have to be very strategic in what we put into our formula. We can't put in something that's not the base or the height, or the recipe doesn't turn out. It doesn't turn into the area of a parallelogram. So let's make sure we use the base and the height. And I know that these two are my base and my height because right here it has a little 90-degree corner. That tells me that it's 90 degrees this way, 90 degrees straight up. That's how you know it's the base and the height. This right here is side length, angle length. I don't know what that's exactly called, but we don't need it. That's like putting raisins into cookies. Most good recipes do not have raisins in their recipe for cookies. And that's like this parallelogram. We don't need the 6.5. We only need the 7.5 and the 5.25. So before I can stick this into my calculator, before you can put it in your calculator, you have promised Mrs. Madsen that you would write down everything all of the work that you are doing before you actually put it in the calculator. And this is what I'm talking about. Before I put in the base and the height into my calculator, I'm going to make sure that I put it on my paper. Now I can pull up my calculator and I can plug it in. So 7.5 times 5.25 gives me 39.375. And we're doing inches, so inches. And because we are finding area, we're going to make sure that we do inches squared or square inches. Why squares? Because what I just found out is that inside this parallelogram, there are going to be almost 40 squares inside of it, and that's why it is inches squared. All right, with a triangle, the formula for a triangle is very similar to the formula for a parallelogram, except we're going to take half of it. And why is it half? Well, if we were to take this triangle and double it and put it right there, what we have, let me make it thicker so you can see, what we have made is a parallelogram. And that is why we have the base times the height, because that would give us the area of all of that. Now, we don't need the area of all of that, right? Which is where the 1/2 comes into play. We are just going to take half of it, and that's going to give us the half of that shape, which is the triangle that we need. So to put this into my calculator, I'm going to go 1/2, which is 0.5 times, now 6 and 1/4 is the same as 6.25, isn't it? Times 6. Okay, so I plug it into my calculator. Let me pull my calculator back up. We're going to go 0.5 times 6.25 times 6 equals 18.75. Now, the other way you can put this into your calculator if you would like is, let me do a different color so you can see it. You could go 6.25 times 6. Find out what that is, and let's do that right now. 6.25 times 6. That'll give me 37.5. And then I'm going to choose to cut it into half, which is done by dividing it by, oops, get my face out of the way, dividing it by 2. And I also get 18.75. Going to make sure that I do inches squared to have the correct label. So remember that dividing by 2 is the same as timesing by half. I don't care which one you do, just make sure that it gets done with triangles. If you choose to divide it by 2, make sure you do the timesing first, the base and the height, and then take the half of that. If you do half, because it's all timesing, you can do it in whatever order you would like. All right, last shape we've talked about so far is a trapezoid. Now with trapezoids, what we can do is we can take this shape, double it, flip it, and we get this shape right here, which, boom, 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 is another parallelogram. So for the area of a trapezoid, again, it's base times height. And again, we're going to end up taking half of it out. So that's why it's 1/2. The tricky part about the trapezoid is knowing that the base, we got to do a little work to figure out the base. What we have to do to figure out the base is we have to take one base, add it with the other base. So we have 1.6 and 0.9. But everything else is the same as a parallelogram triangle. Okay, so to plug this into my calculator, I'm going to go base plus base. So I'm going to write this as 0.5 times 1.6 plus 0.9 times 0.6. And I'm going to do that part of my calculator first because it's in parentheses. That's going to give me 1.6 plus 0.9, which is 2.5. And then I can just put the rest of this in the calculator because it's all times. And that will give me 0.5 times 2.5 times 0.6 equals 0.75 meters squared. That, my friends, is your review and your recap for how to find the area of parallelograms, triangles, and trapezoids. Get those formulas, get those recipes memorized. When you've got them memorized, head on back to the Mastery Corner and show me that you've got it. See you later.